Moving my knee like a pro, huh? All right, here's that moment of truth. We're waiting for the data. But I have to see it. If I don't see it, it's not real. You guys know me, the doubting Thomas of the net. If he doesn't see it, it's not legit. I have seen it. It is good. I have seen it. The internet has given us another day. The internet has allowed us to exist once again. What's up, everybody? Good afternoon to all my East Coasters. Good morning to all my West Coasters. And good evening. If you're in an evening time zone, I hope your evening's going well. Hope you're having a nice dinner if you're at that point. And to everybody in the future, New Zealand, Australia, please fix climate change for the rest of us. You're in the future. You're a day ahead. Just fix it. And then send us a text or an email or even mention something on a Clubhouse room. I joined Clubhouse like a couple days ago. I still don't understand it, but I'll keep you guys updated. If anyone's on it, please find me. And if anyone's not, I'll keep you updated on it. I don't understand it completely yet. It's basically like it's like a big conference that never ends. Like it's just like a big like seminar with different like breakout sessions that just is always going on online, I think. Anyway, shout out to everyone who makes the show possible. Our friends over at ZT.com, CHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. You can get their tea wholesale because of the pandemic. And please do show them some love if you can. They're out in Austin, Texas, where our friends in Texas are struggling right now. And if you're out there, please do stay safe. Our friends over at triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. Trendy name makes topical pain oil for your body. That works wonders. I use it on my neck. Shout out to them. And our friends over at Indie Left. Indie Left is the only place to find all the articles and vids from your favorite outlets and content creators. I'm there. The outlet gets updated twice a day. And to learn more and subscribe and to join their Discord, they got a Discord community going. You can check them out at independentleft.media. That's independentleft.media. And yours truly has written their theme song, which, by the way, if you want your own theme song, patreon.com/Ron Placone. Give what you can level, and you get your own theme song. All right, without further ado, so today's episode is going to be a little different. We're going to focus specifically on something that happened in the neighborhood that I call home and the neighborhood that my guest calls home, San Pedro, California. And even though this is pertinent to San Pedro, there's a lot to be learned here as far as organizing in your neighborhood and acting locally, and the importance of being civically engaged locally too, which is something we talk about a lot on this show. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my guest today. She is active with Street Watch LA. She is also helping out Kenneth Mejia, who you may remember. Please welcome to the show, Danny. Danny, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me, Ron.
Thanks for doing this, and I'm real excited. We're going to go into what happened in San Pedro very soon, but first, let's give people a little bit of a backstory here. So what is Street Watch LA? What exactly is that organization?
Yeah, Street Watch is an organization that is really, we are obviously really passionate about housing rights and tenant rights. We also do this through mutual aid and political advocacy. So we are South Bay local specifically. We do a lot of sweep monitoring. And so Care Plus sweeps are the city's way of displacing folks under the guise of sanitation. And they're really harmful. And especially during a pandemic, we certainly don't need people moving anywhere, and folks should be able to shelter in place. So that's where we've really put our collective effort in the past couple months.
So for people who might not be in the area, might not be in the know, I mean, one of the popular hashtags that y'all use that I've used myself, thanks to your organization, is services, not sweeps. Now, for people in the LA area, they know what that means, but for people outside, they might not know what that means exactly. So what does that mean? What do we mean when we say services, not sweeps?
Right. So at the beginning of the pandemic, Care Plus sweeps were actually so these sweeps, again, they're the city's version of cleaning LA, but really they haven't been known to completely destroy people's tents. They get rid of any like documents or just personal items that folks have, food, water, anything like that. If it's not moved at a specific time, the city can actually take it and destroy it. So we say this is not sweeps because how are we why are we harming folks who are often on the most vulnerable edge of our society? So services, not sweeps to me, and this current political lens means housing the unhoused, endearing the hotels, not further criminalizing. It is not a crime to be poor. It is not a crime to have less than others. So we are calling on this, and specific our study. I don't know if you're familiar with the FEMA funding that the national government has given us to actually start kind of expanding out Project Roomkey, which was initially that's been somewhat good faith, where we were planning on helping house folks in our actual hotels here in LA. And so far that execution has been very underwhelming. It is only, a lot of folks have not been able to have access to that resource. And it's also in part with how sweeps affect others. They are destroying people's IDs. You need that to get into Project Roomkey. A lot of these things are all compounding at one time.
So to just give a quick summary, because we're having a little bit of connectivity issues. Sweeps are. It's okay. It's okay. We're doing fine. But so the sweeps are what the city is doing, where they are displacing homeless people during a pandemic, where they're just doing these sweeps, and it's actually very brutal. It's not cleaning up the city. And instead, what we should have are more services for homeless people and houseless people, which we could do many times over, because I think a lot of times people don't realize these sweeps, not only are they brutal, they're also very expensive. So you think about all these resources that we already have, we could use them to help people instead of doing these sweeps. And you mentioned one of those things, which was Project Roomkey, which goes back closer to the beginning of the pandemic, where we were promised an effort towards no vacancy. And what that means is that we're going to utilize our hotels and other resources here in California to help houseless people. And as you pointed out, the execution of that has been at best underwhelming. And I think underwhelming is putting it gently. They pretty much just waffled on the whole thing. I mean, wouldn't you say so? It's like they didn't.
Completely.
They delivered less than a fraction of what they promised. And there were actually some videos, and I'm sure you remember when this happened. There was that guy who they gave him a hotel room when the cameras were on and the press was looking, and then they kicked him out of the hotel. Do you remember that?
Right. Yes. And that, unfortunately, that experience is not, it's not just specific to that one person. That happened to tons of people. And I think when we talk about our housing crisis, that's a myth. We have resources to house everyone. The housing crisis is not real. And so when we have cities promise these really critical resources and not do that, there are severe consequences for that. Not only are you putting people back on the streets and potentially make more vulnerable to contracted, we have hypothermia. Like January was our most dead month. Folks dying of hypothermia. 5.5 people die a day in LA. Like that, there are serious issues with not house folks.
So let's go specifically to what happened in Pedro recently, because this is a story that has a somewhat happy ending, although we still have a long way to go. So this happened back in January. This video is a little frustrating to watch, but here we go. So hopefully I don't get sued for copyright infringement from the Barney Corporation, or whoever it is that's in charge of that. But what went on there, and the Streetwatch LA tweet sums it up for you. In San Pedro, neighbors have stated that a vacant property owned by Jericho Development plays the Barney theme song at all hours of the day and night. And most recently, this building added floodlights. And why did they do this? They did this to torture the houseless community there. They didn't want them around, so they started playing this music day and night and they added floodlights to try to further brutalize and torment these people. Now, Danny, I can tell you a story. I was in New York City. This was a couple years back, and I had to catch a bus, and it was very early in the morning. It was around like I think 6 a.m. And so I'm in downtown Manhattan at 6 a.m. The city still has not woken up. And one of the things that they would do, and I'm sure they probably still do this, to kind of get the homeless people to scatter in Manhattan, is they will drive around blaring music to try to get them to go away. And I'll never forget, the song that they were blaring was "Fortunate Son" by Creedence Clearwater Revival, which I don't know if you know that song, but if you do, like the lyrics are kind of about a guy who a guy who grew up in the States and never really got a privileged shake at it. So it was a very very kind of cruelly ironic choice of a song that I'm sure was done intentionally. And I remember watching that and thinking, that is just brutal. But they did that in the morning. They didn't do it day and night. This group was doing this nonstop, this development company. So how did Streetwatch LA become abreast to this? And what was your all's initial reaction?
Right. And this was honestly the tip of the iceberg for us. Our main focus is on the safety and protection and community that we are building in Pedro. So there were a lot of different things that we had to think about before even putting out a story like this, and ensuring that our residents, if we do post something like this, that they will not be impacted by that decision. While important it is for people to see this kind of like anti-homelessness behavior. So we do power-ups bi-weekly. And that's how we build community. That's how we build trust with our neighbors. They come to our table, get their charges or get their like cellular devices and anything that they might need charged. And, we also have like different mutual aid in that moment. So, these people are our friends. They are our comrades in this fight. So when things like this happen in our community, it feels deeply personal when I saw that. And we went back, I think the first time that we realized that this was an issue was all the way back in January. And so this was a very well documented kind of thing before we even chose to act on it. We got several videos at all different hours of the day and night showing that this was happening, because I think a lot of the time, as an activist, I've seen just people will gaslight the heck out of you for wanting housing or people to have basic human rights. So, we were going in the perspective that we were going to have a lot of NIMBYs who were going to justify this. And we did. We had a lot of folks who were like, yeah, keep the music, make it keep happening, like play Baby Shark. And, that stuff, that hurt me. And this isn't even something that I was able to remove myself from that situation. So it hurts you. And to see folks say stuff like this. So once we found out that Jericho, what property this belonged to, kind of who was in charge of it, that's when I started drafting the tweet that you showed there. And it lays it out very nicely, but this was a month before we actually brought this to the table. And those are still the time frame that our residents were hearing this every single day and night. But we wanted to be really intentional with who we were going after. We wanted to make sure that it was going to be the actual company and not just some random person. So there was a lot of thought behind it. And when we posted that, I had no idea that it would reach as far as it did. And we had a lot of people. I'm pretty sure Jericho had a bad day when that tweet went out. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing this, because, you guys issued a call to action, and you guys gave the phone number and the email address of Jericho, which, I emailed, I called, and I'm sure a ton of other residents did too. And here's what happened. Thank you to everyone who shared this tweet and demanded Jericho stop the harassment of our neighbors. When we fight, we win, but the fight isn't over yet. So they did stop the music, which was definitely a victory and a huge win. Now, I decided to pull up my phone here because I wanted to read some of the email correspondence that I have. And I know this is a formula letter, so Street Watch LA has the same thing, but I thought we should share it. So I sent an email. I'll go ahead and read it. Hello, I am a resident of San Pedro and have seen some disturbing footage of your company orchestrating the playing of loud music day and night to brutalize houseless people. I am asking that you stop this immediately. This is disgusting, and it is not who we are as a neighborhood here in San Pedro. Most of the people here do their best to help the less fortunate, not torment them. Shame on you. And here's the response I got that I know is kind of a form response that they're sending out. And they did respond to everyone individually, so I'll give them that. But thank you for your message. We are reading all of them. So good on you, reading all the messages about your brutal behavior. But anyway, we stopped the music yesterday morning. And per our statement yesterday, we are deeply sorry for the lack of consideration we showed our unhoused community. We allowed our frustrations to lead and took the wrong actions around this complex issue. This is inexcusable. We realize we are in a leadership position and have the resources and the willingness to do better. Today, we stand humbled and committed to reviewing how we got here and how we can repair our relationship with the community, including our unhoused neighbors. So, okay, that's an apology. Not enough, nowhere close to enough, but I guess better than no response at all. I mean, what was your reaction when you saw that initial apology?
Yeah, and honestly, your email to them was a lot better than the one that I think it's also hard in these situations too, because you do want to call people instead of call out. And that's honestly the first approach to have to situations like this. But it almost feels like you're doing the result of getting caught. So I'm fine with that. Feel sorry that you did this, but that's the thing that I could not get out of my brain was the fact that this was a vacant building. No one lives there. No one occupies the space. It's a filming space. And you're going to have who are exposed to COVID and hypothermia outside of your vacant building. So my call to their, underwhelming email. I responded to their email and I was like, it's great that you might feel sorry for your actions, but I don't care for performative activism. I need to see that you're doing something proactively to also right your wrongs. I'm not who you should be apologizing to. It's not me. It's the residents who are outside who your behavior has so directly impacted. And I first heard that they stopped the music. I did not believe them. So I went in there and it was indeed off. And I was talking to some of our residents down there. And they even said, like, they did not believe that it was really over. And they thought that it was going to come back. And they had it still playing in their head. Like, we've gotten a song stuck in our head and wanted it to leave. Like, imagine that all of your days, and it's the Barney theme song too. Like, it's almost like they did that intentionally to like make the problem seem so much smaller than it is, because it sounds silly to say, oh, they're playing Barney music, but it's not. It's hostile sound. Like, it's not music. They tried to infantize what actually their behavior was when it was so deeply harmful. It was so harmful.
Oh, they know it's an annoying song, and that's not a coincidence.
Right.
I mean, yeah, like that's an annoying song. Like, it's not like they were, I mean, if they were playing, like some rock and roll music or even like a Spotify channel, that it's like, well, gee, I mean, I guess they're mixing it up at least. No, like this is actually a device that they use to torture people. They will play music on a loop, and it will be an annoying song over and over and over again to torture people. So here's the second email, and this is their this is what we're doing, quote unquote. This is from the real estate company, Jericho Development. Last Friday, we expressed our apologies and regret for the lack of consideration shown towards our unhoused neighbors. Little more than lack of consideration. Cruelty is also putting it gently. I think, I mean, evil is more accurate. So lack of consideration. A lack of consideration is like when someone's dog is barking and they don't realize what time it is in their apartment complex, and they're like, "Oh, geez, sorry about that." That's a lack of consider. Or you know, there's a community grill in your apartment complex and you don't brush it down quite enough. You kind of half-ass it. Well, that's a little bit of a lack of consideration. This is cruelty. This goes far beyond lack of consideration. But anyway, we made a commitment to review how we got here. You should do that review. I don't know what all that review. I mean, maybe go back to when you were born. Were you ever told no in your freaking life? Maybe that's part of the reason you got here. I mean, what does that mean? Like, we made a commitment to review how we got here. You were taught capitalism's a good thing and to just screw over anybody to get yourself ahead. Maybe that's part of the reason how we got here. Oh, you're part of a company that just devours things in a community and ruins it one place at a time. Maybe that's how you got here. What else do you think they might have found in their review? Like what do you think?
Right. I think they might have reviewed the power of Twitter, because that truly was the biggest way that we were able to work like that. I don't know how we could have done a collective action. And I think a lot of organizing spaces were realizing the power of social media right now.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. And, you know, even though social media definitely has its frustrating elements too, it is a valuable tool in that regard. So here's the updates that they shared. And I know, you know, feel free to jump in, Danny, because I know you've read this before. So we have gone outside. All right. So, well, first of all, they have some bullshit about a dialogue, whatever, but screw that. We have gone outside our company to seek counsel, including local homeless advocacy organizations, the faith community, and other neighborhood stakeholders. Now, did they reach out to y'all? Are you one of the groups they're referring to here?
No. And I made that very clear in my email too, because of groups in Pedro, I would say that our South Bay team is probably proactive in terms of building unity down there. And who? Joe Buscaino? I would hope not. I hope they didn't reach Joe Buscaino. I do not think he's going to do anything, and that could potentially leave residents in harm's way. Well, that short answer, I did not hear from them. We didn't hear from them.
Well, and to fill some people in, so Pedro's an interesting place because it is a dock town. It is a heavy union town. It is a pretty left-leaning town. Like it's a pretty big lefty place, strong union presence. There's a lot of young activists like yourself and Pedro that are very inspiring. Yet for some reason, our representative, our city council member, is a cop who hangs out with Elon Musk. And wasn't he wearing a shirt that said like "Stop being poor" or something like that? Wasn't that him?
Yes. Totally. That shirt related a lot. So it initially said, I think it said "Yimby" when Joe acted like he cared about poor people, and then it's been changed a couple of times. So
okay.
I actually read that. But yes, I know what you're talking about. We can say that he did that. Yeah, he did wear it said "poor people."
If he didn't actually do it, he's the type of guy who would. Like, he's the type of guy where it's like you see that and you immediately just think, of course it's legit, because he's not a good dude. Right now, his big thing is he's trying to sue. What is it? He's trying like the school district to make them open schools, even though it's not safe. I mean, he's not a good guy. So if they reached out to him, yeah, they're not gonna. His response would be, "Let's do more sweeps. Let me try to get some money for more sweeps." That's what he would do.
And Beach Creek gets swept. That area specifically gets swept every single week, and they're all like moving out more to like other encampments too. And so I think as a South Bay team, we've been really focused on sweeps because we know that Joe Buscaino's actions set a precedent for other city council members to be like, oh, what's happening in Joe Buscaino's district? Why can't it happen in mine? And his behavior has created a very big trickle down effect. Like it's had consequences for other areas too.
Yeah. I mean, that's so frustrating to hear. And then so here's the immediate actions that Jericho's saying they did. Key stakeholders shared an urgent need. So that means nothing. They shared an urgent need for ongoing enrichment programming within local shelters and bridge housing specifically, programming that provides engaging and skills-based learning opportunities. We will utilize our financial and human resources to develop and execute a monthly arts program and partnership with area shelters. That's nice. Actions speak louder than words. Let's see it. And also, the first part of this paragraph is so painfully tone deaf. Like, well, a bunch of rich people realized, hey, there's poor people and they're suffering. Did you guys know this? I thought we solved this in the 90s. Did you guys know about this is urgent. Man, we should hold a bake sale or something. What should we do? I don't know. But it turns out this is a thing. Did you guys? I had no idea. I was at the yacht club last week. Everything seemed normal. I don't know. Everyone seemed fine there.
Right. It definitely shows some cognitive dissonance, I would say, because they are really out of touch, and it bothers me too, because it's like you can leave and just not think about it. Like, yet your direct actions completely are staying with our residents for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the thing too. A lot of these development companies, they have nothing invested in the neighborhood themselves. We'd all be better off if they just weren't here. And that's something. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this, but here in San Pedro, another thing that's happening is that they are redesigning the LA waterfront. And the reality is that this neighborhood is going to change a lot within the next 5 to 10 years. It's already happening. And especially as the city spreads out a little more people are going to be coming here. And that's not always just a bad thing. There are some good things and bad things, but if we're not careful, the bad's going to outweigh the good by a lot because of stuff like this and these developers. And unfortunately, Jericho is not the first. They won't be the last.
Right. And I think with even choosing how I was wanting to respond to them, on the one side, I'm like, yeah, call in everyone to the movement. And then at the same time, I'm like, tough. I don't like landlords. I really am struggling to feel empathy for you or your developer buddies. And I think with San Pedro specifically, automation is coming to the port. And that is a huge issue in our Union Port town. And Joe Buscaino, while he performatively said, oh no, like we won't bring automation, he still has been sympathetic to it. And it's enabled these larger shipping companies to start already beginning the process of automation, even without union agreement. So there's a lot of big issues deeper than just like our union base, but like we have gentrification coming to the Wilmington waterfront. And again, all of these issues are going to impact our already severe homelessness crisis. So I don't know how that side of it, yeah, we're definitely getting to the weeds because a lot of Pedro people and CD15 folks have a lot of opinions on the gentrification that's happening here and how it relates to the port and automation.
Well, and I've never worked on a port or anything like that, but one thing I did do was I used to give harbor tours in Seattle, Washington when I lived there. I was a tour guide on a little like boat that took tourists around most of the time before they were waiting to take a cruise to Alaska, and they would take like a little boat tour that I was on. And so the reason I bring this up is because I know a little bit about what's involved with that type of work because it was part of our tour. We would explain it to people. And it is like really unloading shipping containers from a ship to a dock. It is the equivalent of you are sitting 12 feet in the air and you have a fishing pole with a bowling ball attached to it. And you're trying to lower it into a freaking garbage can where it barely fits. That's what it is like equivalent to. So this whole idea that they could automate all of this and just have, something would inevitably go wrong. And when it would, the entire supply chain would be destroyed. So this idea that even if you do utilize some automation tools, like this idea that it would eliminate the need for physical bodies to be there, I think it's just straight up delusional. Like, it's just not
It
gonna,
is.
nor should it, you know? And so
Yeah.
this shouldn't be, I mean, this shouldn't be a front and center conversation. And
No.
you know, so
Yeah.
yeah,
My dad's
it
a longshoreman, so that's also why I probably have such intense feelings about this. But you hit the nail on the head. A lot of these require really intentional specialization that I do not think a robot could ever do.
or at least not without huge human oversight.
Definitely.
You know, so it's like,
Definitely.
so they say that we will continue to coordinate with and support local groups that provide essential items and services to those directly impacted by our actions. Well, again, you all do mutual aid, and they haven't reached out to you. So who are
Nope.
they reaching out to? Who are they talking to? Who are these people?
I couldn't tell you. I really don't know. And I also brought it up when I sent my email back to them. I was like, I'll be following up to check on your action plan because I haven't heard anything and I want to know because there are other groups in PGA who do amazing work like this. And if we could gain like support in that way, that would be wonderful because we're only going to be like a bigger collective group. But I feel like these are empty words. I feel like they did not reach out to anyone. No one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and here's the other thing. We have established sorry, I mean this isn't funny, but it is because of how ridiculous it is.
Right.
We have established a community liaison position within the company. This team member will join relevant neighborhood communities to committees, to ensure they, and in turn our company at large, are informed on the issues facing our unhoused community, and that we are an active member of groups seeking to find equitable solutions to these complex issues. Well, who is this person? And do we have a say in where they show up? Because
Right.
I would love this position to be given to a person qualified to do it. And I would love to start telling them, hey, here's where you need to be showing up to. Here's who you need to be talking to. That person, the person who has this position should have your name and information down by heart. And same with everyone else's Street Watch LA. So who is this person and what do they do? Has this position been filled yet? I know there's a lot of people who need jobs right now. Have they reached out? Do we know who the community liaison is?
No. And I also think one of the biggest things with mutual aid is consistency. And building community requires that so much. So like that is why we do our power ups every 2 weeks. And folks know that every Saturday they'll find us out there. So I don't like that they're even like flippantly throwing this out just to be like, oh yeah, we've done that. And I'm like, you can't show up once and then expect that to be enough.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't show up once when the pressure is on from the community, when the cameras are on, when people are watching, and say some nice things and bring up some nice idea for a program and then just disappear again. And the other thing that they said, before we kind of dismount from the actual email here, they did acknowledge your request for occupancy. And according to them, the space is currently occupied by a tenant. Have y'all looked into that or?
Again, it's a filming space. And I think that's what they're trying to allude to, that like someone's currently using it. But no, the space is empty. The space is empty.
So they're basically saying that the cameras are people.
Yeah.
And the cameras are living there.
Or that their space is just too important to be like it's not going to somehow function as shelter to evade like this kind of weird issue that they're having about housing people.
Yeah. Well, they say occupied by a tenant, but it's like, well, that could just mean somebody's paying the rent.
Right.
That doesn't mean, I mean,
Truly.
like the way they worded that, that there's still a little bit of ambiguity there on purpose.
There is. And again, that's totally intentional.
So, I mean, this is still and I'm not trying to, I'm a sarcastic guy, but I don't want to downplay how awesome it was what y'all did. I mean, I don't want to downplay that we got the music, you guys got the music to stop. And you guys made a lot of people online aware, myself being one of them. And, as a Pedro resident who, and I'm still new here. This is, and I appreciate you. I appreciate you all being so welcoming into your neighborhood. And I love it here. And I hope to be a positive contributing member. As someone who's still new here, I mean, when I saw that, it hit me like it hit me where I was just like, this is not my neighborhood. This is not who we are. And, I wanted to do something. And in these pandemic times, organizing digitally is still a very huge thing. And it's something that we do have at our disposal at all times. So I placed the phone call, I sent the email, and, it was thanks to you guys that I knew to do that. And I knew exactly where to go. And we did get the music to stop, and we kind of have them on their toes. And, I really hope this is a message to Jericho and other people like Jericho that, you know what? Don't fuck around in our neighborhood.
Yeah. And I think as an organizer, even after that, it was so hard for me to even quantify that as a win and as a success, because I'm like, our neighbors deserve so much more. I want a win to be housing people, not stopping horrible sounds that you're using to harm others. So of course, grateful it stopped, but I'm like, why did I have to bully y'all to stop this music? Like that's crazy to me. That's crazy to me that I had to seriously create a call to action in order for you to be a good neighbor. And I think even now, I'm still worried that people do this. We have hostile architecture. I don't know if you've seen the way that people put bars through the benches so people can't lay down. And it's also happening again. We've heard other reports who have come to us who are talking about they've seen it in their neighborhoods of people doing this very loud sound. And it's classical music on Gaffey Street. So there are other places that we're now starting to want to go out and kind of assess and see that it's not just us who are experiencing these things, because sometimes they're few and far between. I hadn't heard of the music as a deterrent before until I saw it. And I just hope that, I don't know, because sometimes people get ideas from this stuff. They might, I don't know, because there was also what kind of started my spiral after this all happened. I was really happy that the music stopped, but I went on a Save San Pedro Facebook page. The NIMBYs had gotten a hold of this article and were taking a poll on which sounds they wanted to start hearing at places. And they suggested park, and they said, let's play rock music. And I even screenshotted a couple of them and put them on, because and not even to aim these folks for saying the horrible things that they said, but to bring the station to the table. There is serious anti-homelessness rhetoric that has serious consequences. And these are just words that people are spewing, but there is legitimate physical violence that people go out. Down on Beacon Street, we had folks get shot a couple months ago. That is the level of intensity that people feel toward our unhoused neighbors.
So what is the Save San Pedro Facebook group then? What is that exactly?
It is a bunch of NIMBYs who have organized, and it's seriously so harmful, because it's a page to keep an eye on crime in the town. And I went on it because I was like, what the hell are these people saying? What is going on? And every single day there is someone posting an unhoused person and their information and where they are and all of these horrible things describing them. And they often call people drug addicts and just really harmful things. And it's just so, I can't even watch it anymore, because it just affects my inner psyche too deeply at this point. But seeing that rhetoric after the Jericho thing, I felt like I took 5 steps back. It was seriously so hard for me to even be like, yeah, we did it. Because now I'm like, here these people are saying such cruel, just straight up cruel things. And it just makes me see that here in Pedro, we have a long fight. We have so many people that we're going to have to get in line. And I don't think a lot of them will. But I almost feel like Joe Buscaino's actions have emboldened this kind of rhetoric. He's made it okay for folks to be like, yeah, I hate the unhoused. Because that's seriously the kind of, those are the kind of people that I have been seeing on these Facebook pages, where they can just so emboldeningly say such cruel and evil things without any accountability, because they have all of their friends rallying around them being like, yeah, we all hate the unhoused.
That is the type of that is the type of I'm trying to think of like the right way to put it. That's the type of like vibe he gives. Like that's the type of energy that Joe Buscaino delivers. And also on a side note about him, as an Italian American as well, I really, really despise it when somebody uses that for political gain, which he does. And I'm curious to find out if he actually speaks the language. I'm going to take a guess and say he doesn't. But yeah,
Right.
I'm curious to know that. If I ever meet the guy, I will try to find that out about him.
And even in that, he has really he's upheld white supremacy in that way too. Because when it was Columbus Day, he wanted to change the day to Italian People's Day instead of Indigenous People's
really?
Day.
He did. Oh God.
And and even when we talk about sweeps, Joe Buscaino is upholding white supremacy. He is creating this rhetoric that the unhoused or anyone who deviates from cleanliness, which is ultimately whiteness, that they are other, that they are less than. And so when he says, I want to keep our streets clean, that's not signaling to me that he wants to pick up trash. Because if he wanted to pick up trash, he would have given folks some trash bins. He would have made sure there's hand washing stations and different porta potties available during a pandemic. But he decides that trash is people. And that's part of it. And so when we're drawing the distinction between a Care Plus sweep and a community cleanup, why is law enforcement even present at a sweep? If I can do outreach and me and my friends can go out and serve our community without the presence of law enforcement, can you please explain to me why LAHSA can't do the same thing? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I mean
that does not make sense.
Yeah, I didn't know the Columbus thing about him too, and that's that's so frustrating. I mean, we don't have to go off on all that. I mean, I have a lot of opinions on it because I am an Italian American myself, but I feel like San Pedro, as LA's Little Italy, does have, I think, an obligation to kind of be outspoken about that stuff in the right way. Because, San Pedro is a place where it's like there is also a big Native American community in San Pedro. And I think it's very powerful if, the Little Italy of LA can kind of take a stand and be like, no, today is Indigenous Peoples Day. Our, like nobody's heritage has anything to do with a genocidal maniac who got lost. And so
why is it even Little Italy? Like, where was the community conversation about that and the implications that it could have on stolen land? Like, we are on Tongva land. Mm-hmm. And we have a bunch of colonizer like architecture, like down at Cabrillo Beach. You have Cabrillo up there, and so that has really generational harm and trauma that people are still experiencing. And so for a leader to so actively say really harmful things like that, it's concerning. But he's done it before. With the George Floyd murder, he was very clear on where he stands on that. And I helped organize a protest here in San Pedro right after George Floyd's murder, and it was completely co-opted by the Harbor Division, who is now under serious scrutiny for circulating in a Valentine card the George Floyd, I can't breathe, or you take my breath away. So it is so freaking concerning to me that a Harbor Division located in San Pedro has a leader who has not condemned white supremacy in any way, shape, or form, and has even emboldened people to not loudly say Black Lives Matter. And
so wait, let's back up for a second, because you touched on something that made the national news that like just to refresh people who may not have heard about it yet. In the LAPD, which is just a fantastic organization with a wonderful history, but the LAPD, they circulated a Valentine's Day card that said, I can't breathe, and it was mocking George Floyd, which is beyond disgusting. And you have Police Chief Michael Moore, who, not the filmmaker, just happens to have the same name, but you have Police Chief Michael Moore, who, you know, I mean, it was almost just insanely comical that that guy inexplicably still has his job. And you saw him grandstanding like, whoever did this will face my wrath. And you can't help but just kind of roll your eyes at that whole idea. So you're saying they were able to trace that to people in San Pedro?
From what I've seen, it came from the Harbor Division,
Really?
which is the Harbor Department located in San Pedro. And to me, as someone who cares so deeply about Black lives and the Black Lives Matter movement, to know that there are people like that in my town, it's scary. It's frightening that we can have people who feel so, I don't even know how to describe that kind of hatred. But what I saw from Joe Buscaino in the summer, loudly saying Black Lives Matter, and then voting to not defund the police, and then also voting to continue Care Plus sweeps when we know that Black people are 17 times more likely to face excessive force by LAPD as an unhoused person. How that doesn't signal to me that Black Lives Matter to you. You cannot criminalize homelessness and say Black Lives Matter. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is my first time hearing about that they were able to track it to the Harbor Division. I mean, I heard that they were doing their investigation, which they're investigating themselves. I'm sure we'll get a great resolution here. They're investigating themselves again. But yeah, this is my first time hearing that it was actually the Harbor Division. And, again, this is the type of vibe that Joe Buscaino guy gives off. I mean, whether he's responsible or involved or not, I don't know, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if he was. This is the type of vibe he gives off. This is what he puts into the world. And
he invited Chief Police Moore to a Black Lives Matter protest. That's, as someone who is I am a complete abolitionist. I do not believe in the carceral state or the cops at all. And to watch something get so co-opted, we had the Harbor Department there, we had the NAACP and Joe Buscaino. This felt like a really strange pep rally, and I do not feel right when an officer who's complicit in a racist system gives me a white rose to honor George Floyd. That doesn't sit right with me. And I don't think it sat right with a lot of other folks in Pedro. So that, and then building off the momentum, and that's largely why I started organizing in the first place. I saw that there was a very unique set of issues that our unhoused community faced in San Pedro. And I also saw that my LA City Councilman was not doing much to change that. And so me and 5 of my girlfriends would go out on the weekends and distribute mutual aid. And then at a Black Lives Matter meeting, I met a friend in K-Town for All, got introduced to Jane, and that's how I started organizing with Street Watch. And I'm also a member of KFA. And again, that's how I spiraled into the Kenneth Arena too. So all of these groups are super interconnected, but I'm also grateful that I'm even able to be in a space that gives me the chance to meet such incredible organizers who are doing the real work on the ground, that we don't need politicians. They don't keep us safe. And I can just rely on the work that Street Watch and K-Town for All do to keep my community safe.
And that's really inspiring. Well, let's get into mutual aid then for a little bit. Like how do these groups kind of orchestrate the mutual aid? Just using San Pedro as an example.
Yes. So the first time that I did any mutual aid, it was all completely donations that people from the community gave to me. And so me and my Venmo were what we used to do mutual aid. And at the higher level, with Street Watch and K-Town for All, a lot of our stuff is also organized through like a donation base as well. So that was super, it is more so like bringing in the community in that way. If you can fiscally donate, we will be the one to go out and get the supplies and then distribute them to our neighbors. So I also, like, right now my car and my house is just like socks and wipes all over all the time. There are always constantly kits that I have ready to go, just in the event that I come across someone who might need some stuff. So that's our mutual aid model, is on the biweekly basis that we also have our power-ups. So those are the two times that folks can know that they can come to the table and get any kind of stuff that they might need.
So where can people go to donate, or where can people go to get involved?
On our Street Watch page, we have our Bitly, and the link can lead you to our donation site. And then our South Bay local, I have one on my Twitter that has our like Amazon wish list. So people can also just directly buy supplies like from that link as well.
So that is Street Watch LA on Twitter. And then you are just Danny Doe on Twitter.
Yes, Danny
Okay.
_Doe. Yeah.
Danny _Doe. Okay, so one more thing I wanted to cover with you, and here's a little bit of good news. This happened pretty much today. The LAUSD board vote unanimously to cut police positions in LAUSD schools and reinvest $25 million from school police into Black students, and also invest an additional $11 million into Black students as well. So again, we still have a long way to go, obviously, but this is definitely a victory. And I saw this from Kenneth Mejia, who you organize with a lot as well. So what happened here? What's your involvement there?
Yeah, so this is something that LA students deserve, have been fighting for forever. And I think as an adult, watching children fight for their right to live is so fucked. There's no other way to put it. And it kills me to also see people somehow say no to it, and to make these children have to quantify why their life matters. And so to see this happen, and to know that our kids might be just a little bit safer in schools, is a serious victory. My mom has taught in Inglewood Unified School District for the past 30 years, and seeing cops on campus never makes sense. How are you going to be expected to learn in an environment that is inherently hostile and has the presence of law enforcement? And in a similar way that sweeps don't belong law enforcement doesn't need to be involved at a sweep, why do they belong in our schools? They should not be in our schools at all. And I hope that 25 million will directly go to serve our Black students. And I hope that we're going to truly begin to create this abolitionist model to a world where there are no police in schools, definitely afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess in closing, let's reiterate where people can go to help. Not just and first of all, give all the plugs for Street Watch LA and where people can go to help specifically here in San Pedro. But also, if you don't mind, give some kind of advice on other people in other neighborhoods and in communities. I mean, what they can kind of do to start organizing in their communities to try to, start to take their neighborhoods back. Kind of give like a summary of some suggestions that you have, based on your experience.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, you know your community best. And the best way to learn that is to go out and to talk to folks, talk to your unhoused neighbors, see what their needs are and how you can be the help that they might need in that moment. And I learned a lot of my mutual aid outreach from K-Town for All. When we experienced that really severe heat wave, that was when I started doing outreach more consistently. And I froze water bottles and gave those out to my neighbors on that weekend. And we gave sandwiches. And also start getting involved in mutual aid organizations. I mean, I was kind of reinventing the wheel because I didn't know that these great organizations even existed. And so being able to also see that there is such a wonderful community in a really dark space like this is really wonderful. The friendships that I've made are so deep and powerful. And here we are doing really, really hard work together. And I think that's what makes them that much more powerful, because we know that the freedom that we're fighting for is achievable and that there is a life beyond oppression that we're going to get to. So join Street Watch. We have a new member orientation tomorrow at 5:30, and I'll be leading it, so you'll get to see me and all of the great folks who are doing the work down on the ground here. And it gives you a really wonderful sense of like our model, because we are a very unique kind of method to how we do mutual aid, political advocacy, and we are a completely abolitionist model. We do not believe in incarceration or the carceral state whatsoever. So that is something to be aware of as you start being a part of these organizations. And if that isn't for you, there are also other organizations that don't necessarily have that mindset. But I also love K-Town for All. So if you're in that area too, be sure to check out their Instagram. K-Town for All is always making incredible educational resources in terms of like when we're organizing different call-ins to city council, there's always toolkits that are ready to go that are going to give you those quick talking points for if you call in. So that makes it really accessible to also be having that political engagement piece of it too, because that's really important. That's how we get LA City Council to stop doing these horrible things. And so mutual aid, super important, gives that direct aid to folks immediately when they need it, but also the political advocacy side of it, that we, both K-Town for All and Street Watch LA are part of a coalition called Services Not Sweeps. And between all of us, we're able to get some really important work done. We were able to block a sweep that was happening at Lomita McCoy right before Christmas. The mayor got 2,000 emails from us. So power to the people.
Yeah,
it works.
I was one of those 2,000.
Power always works.
Yeah,
good.
I remember
so
that. Yeah, I remember that. I remember Christmas Eve, they were going to do a sweep right in San Pedro, and people started calling and emailing, and they were like, "No, you're not. No, you are not." And I mean, and I know, I mean, everything you said was 100% spot on. That it's like there are, we do have so far to go, but without organizations like yours and without the work you're all doing, we'd be so much further away. So, thank you for everything you do. It's beyond important. You are a hero. And again, everyone, that Twitter account is Street Watch LA, and Danny can be found at Danny_Doe. Now, for anyone who might not be on Twitter, is there like an actual just straight up website that Street Watch LA has? I mean, I just follow it on Twitter, but is there an actual just
there's an actual website.
Okay. Yeah. And is it just, the URL or?
Let me, I think if you just look up Street Watch LA, it'll pop up. But yeah, and you can find all of our resources that we have. We also have the We the Unhoused podcast linked right there. Theo Henderson is a comrade who does such incredible work through spoken word. So if you haven't checked out his podcast, it's We the Unhoused, and it's incredible. It's an incredible podcast, and I thoroughly encourage everyone who can to check it out.
Well, Danny, thank you so much for everything you do, and thanks for joining me today. And stick around if you don't mind, because I would love to chat with you for a few minutes off mic about how I can help more. Since I'm still the new guy in town, I'm still learning things. I've only been here a couple months, so I don't know the lay of the land yet. But anyway, Guys, check out Street Watch LA. You can find them on Twitter, or you can just find them online if you're not on Twitter, to find out how you can get involved if you're in the LA area. And if you're not, research different mutual aid organizations in your community. They're all over the country. We highlight the importance of them on this show. We had Red up in Seattle. We're having Danny today. And it is a very, very important piece of the puzzle of systemic change. I do, thoroughly know that to be the truth. So Danny, thank you so much for joining us today. Get your news on with Ron. We'll be back for a regular stream on Monday. We'll be back Monday. And in the meantime, y'all know the drill. Lucy, she says meow, and I say peace. Peace.